Hello and welcome back to the AA NBA podcast. I'm your host, Aiden Hammond.
And I'm Aditya.
And today we got 2 weeks of news because we recorded last week, but the files got fucked up.
Yeah.
But now we're good.
Yeah. So, do you want to just start out with power rankings then?
Yeah.
Cool. And I did my power rankings. I don't think they changed from what they were last week anyway.
No, mine didn't either.
But yeah, so we won't miss out too much on that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can start.
All right. At number 5, I have the Brooklyn Nets. James Harden's missed the past 2 weeks with a hamstring sprain, so he hasn't played in a while. And they went 2-1 over their last week. They beat the Timberwolves and Hornets, and they lost to the 76ers. So it's okay, but nothing special. And it's something that you definitely expect them to play better than they did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got them at 5.
My number 5, I got the Clippers. They are third in the West right now. They've got some nice wins over the last week, but they lost to the Sixers. So I definitely have the Sixers above them, and I think I still have the Nets just barely edging them out. But yeah, Clippers 5.
I got the Clippers at 4. In this past week, they beat the Pistons twice. They beat the Pacers, and they lost to the Sixers. So they played one more game than the Nets, but they had a pretty similar week altogether. So I really just put them higher based on overall standings. I think they're a game ahead, so I kept them over the Nets.
Yes. All right. At number 4 for me, I got the Nets. The Nets, yeah, they're missing Harden right now, and I wanted to put them over the Sixers, but they're a game and a half worse. Or they're a game worse, but they've got one more loss and one less win, so I couldn't really justify it. But they've got some nice wins this week. The main reason I wanted to put them over the Sixers was because they nearly beat them this week without Durant, without Harden, and Kyrie. I don't think Kyrie played in the fourth, did he?
I think he did.
Or maybe he did. But they basically, they nearly beat a fully loaded 76ers team without two of their best players. So, but yeah, I still got them 4.
Yeah, I have the Sixers at 3. You kind of covered it. They did beat the Nets. Granted, it wasn't a healthy Nets team, but they still did win. They beat the Mavs and the Clippers also this week, so some pretty solid wins, and they are ahead in the overall standings, so I had to give them a little edge over the other two teams.
Yeah, I got the 76ers at 3 as well for basically the same reasons you said. Solid wins this week, but I don't think they're better than the Suns or the Jazz.
Yeah. At number 2, I have the Suns. I think our lists are going to be the same from here, but
yes, I agree.
I did have them at 1 because the Jazz did not have a great week, and the Suns are kind of closing that gap a little bit. But so the Suns beat the Rockets, the Heat, and the Kings, which is a solid week. And then last night they kind of got blown out by the Spurs, and the Spurs rested all of their healthy players.
Yeah.
All of their older guys, at least, a little bit older. So the Suns really had no business losing that game, especially not by as much as they did. So I kind of had to lower them a little bit.
Yeah, number 2, I got the Suns for basically the same reasons. There is still a decent enough gap for me to say that the Jazz are safely better, but the Suns are definitely kind of closing in. But yeah, they got their asses kicked by a not full-strength Spurs team, and the Suns had everybody. They had Chris Paul, they had Booker, they had Ayton, so there's really no reason for them to lose like that.
Yeah. At number 1, we both have the Jazz because they have been the best team in the NBA since week 3.
Yes. Yeah, I don't need to elaborate on that one anymore.
Yeah. Maybe we needed to the first few weeks, but now it's just redundant. They've been insane. So for news and stuff this week, there was some topics we covered last week in the recording that obviously didn't get uploaded that I did kind of want to talk about because there was some good conversing going on. So the first one is about Kawhi's free agency because both of us pretty much thought he was gone. Like if the Clippers didn't win a championship this season, which they probably aren't going to, we both thought he was going to leave the Clippers. But then there was a report that came out last week that said he was expected to re-sign. So we were just kind of talking about free agency possibilities for Kawhi.
I was definitely surprised at that. I had basically prepared myself for him to go to the Heat, the Lakers, or the Mavericks, probably, maybe back to Toronto, but I definitely didn't think he was going back to the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't make sense. I mean, maybe he just like really likes playing with Paul George. I don't know. I guess I think a lot of NBA fans probably were more upset at Paul George in the playoffs than Kawhi was, you'd have to imagine, if he's willing, because Paul George got like a 4-year max extension. So, you know, if Kawhi does re-sign with the Clippers, they're playing together for the next 4 or 5 years. I assume that has to be an incentive. Maybe he just really likes playing with Paul George. They did bring in Serge Ibaka, who is like his friend, so that's probably like putting him on good terms with the org. But I don't know. I feel like if they have another like bad playoff performance, it's hard for me to imagine Kawhi like re-signing there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think if they don't, I think they have to get through the Western Conference Finals. And I think they really, they have to lose in a close 7 if they lose it all before the finals for him to stay.
Yeah. But then it's also I remember last week we talked about this also, but you got to understand, I don't know exactly how much, but his uncle definitely has a big influence on where Kawhi goes. Because he was kind of the main factor in being that sort of guy on Kawhi's shoulder, to get him out of San Antonio and then signing with Los Angeles in free agency.
Yeah, that was something that I kind of forgot about Uncle Dennis. But yeah, it was definitely something that I shouldn't have forgotten about because he clearly has a lot of sway with Kawhi and a lot of pull with his free agency decisions. He definitely had a lot of pull with his decision to leave Toronto, I think.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we said what you said. You could see him going to the Heat, Lakers, or Mavericks.
Yes.
Do the Mavericks have? I can't remember if we talked about this, but do the Mavericks have enough money, or would they have to?
Well, they have They have Luka's bird rights, and I think they got Kristaps' bird rights in the trade too. So, I mean, they don't have multiple maxes on the books because Luka's not on a max yet. So they definitely have the max slot.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that would make sense. I don't know. I think it'd be fun if he just went to a random team that no one would expect, the Pacers or something, super random. And
yeah, it would be hilarious if he went to the Pacers. You should do that as a prank, Kawhi. I think
prank the NBA and go to again, the Pacers are just an example, totally random team that I'm throwing out there, but it'd be very funny.
Yeah, it would be hilarious.
And then the other topic that we talked about last week was Drew Holiday re-signing with the Bucks on a 4-year, $160 million contract.
Yeah, I liked this move, actually. I think more than most or a lot of people.
Yeah. Obviously, Drew Holiday is a very good player. I don't think anyone doubts that, but the amount of money is probably a red flag for some people.
Yeah, I don't have an issue. First of all, I should say I pretty much never have an issue with small market teams giving all-stars or borderline all-stars a lot of money because they kind of, their hands are tied. They have to. Because unless you trade for somebody, nobody's going to you in free agency. It's just not happening.
No, that's definitely fair.
And plus, he was gonna be a free agent this year. Now he's not, and they gave up 5 first-round picks and 2 rotation players to get him. if they didn't pay him, I would have been shocked because that's basically like, yeah, we'll throw away our entire future and then let you walk because we're stupid. Like, and I know that the Bucks aren't a stupid organization. They're not perfect, but they're definitely not like they're definitely significantly worse. They could have mishandled that a lot worse than they did.
Yeah. I don't know. My whole problem with this trade is like, or not this trade, this re-signing, I guess, is like obviously Giannis is making the supermax and he deserves that 100%. No one's arguing that. But Chris Middleton is making a lot of money, and now Drew Holiday is making all of this money, and I still think it's a toss-up whether they can beat the Heat in the playoffs.
Yeah, but like, who would you rather give that money to? Like, they're not going to attract any other big free agents. Like, like Mirotic is gone, Brogdon's gone. Like, if they weren't going to pay those guys, they're definitely not going to attract a free agent. They clearly had a plan, and I think their plan was to either go out and get Beal or like get some sort of all-star caliber guard, and so they did that, and
Yeah. I guess that's fair. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of money for a team that's not even guaranteed to make the conference finals.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think the only guarantee in the East is the Nets in the conference finals. I think I think after the Nets, it's a pretty level playing field. Like, yeah, I'm not sure if the Bucks can beat the Heat, but I'm also not sure if the Heat can beat the Bucks, or if the Heat can beat the Sixers, or if the Sixers can beat the Bucks, or if the Bucks can beat the Sixers. Like, it's a whole flow chart of, and the Heat are also like, they are not great this year. Like, the Heat are the 7th seed right now. They're 500 exactly. Yeah. So I'm not even sure if the Heat could beat the Hawks in a playoff series. I don't know. Like, if the Heat would play the Nets right now, they're losing that series. If that's the first round series, they're losing.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I didn't actually realize that he were that low in the standings. I guess it makes sense, though, because the Celtics kind of jumped up. They were like the 8th seed last week, and now they're the 4th seed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I'm just waiting for them to crash again, you know what I mean?
I am, too. Crash and burn, Celtics.
Yes.
Crash and burn.
But, yeah. I guess that is fair. I didn't really think about the potential, like, the Heat being that bad, because if they can avoid the Heat, I feel like the Heat are the worst team for Giannis to match up against, because even if you play the six, like, other than the Nets, I guess, because the Nets would match up well against anybody.
Well, defensively, nobody on the. I get what you're saying. Yeah, continue with the Heat.
Yeah, but like, because other than the Heat, like the Sixers are obviously very good, but the Heat defense was able to sort of negate Giannis's effect. What?
The Heat play a zone. They owned a zone kind of a lot, which really kills Giannis.
Yeah, which is something that the Sixers don't do. Or really, not many other teams in the East do it at all. Or if they do it, it's not as good as the Heat.
The Sixers have, I would say the Sixers match up well and the Celtics match up well. I think this might be a little bit of a hot take. I think the only team in the Heat that could beat the Nets in a 7-game series is the Bucks. I think that the Bucks could do it. I'm not confident in the Sixers. I'm not confident in the Celtics. I'm not confident in the Heat.
Can do it.
To beat the Nets.
I don't have confidence in the Bucks to make the finals until either Mike Budenholzer acknowledges the fact that you have to change rotations and game style in the playoffs, or they get a new head coach.
That's true.
That's detrimental to their team.
My reasoning is nobody on the Nets can stop Giannis. The Sixers are weird because I think the Sixers have an elite defensive center and an elite defensive wing, but against the Nets, that elite defensive wing can't guard all three. Like, none of the Nets' best players are centers, right? Like, they don't have a guy that Joel Embiid can completely take out of the game with his defense.
Right.
They have 3 guys who maybe they have one guy. Like, Ben Simmons could maybe take Kyrie out of a game, but like Kyrie dropped 40 on him the other night. And he's like the Nets' 3rd best player. I'm not really convinced that anybody on the Sixers can guard anybody on the Nets, and I am very convinced that everybody on the Nets can score on everybody on the Sixers.
Right. The Sixers. Well, the problem with the Nets is they're insane. they have three of the best scorers in the league. No one's matching up against them.
I guess the reason why I am a little more confident in the Bucks over the Sixers is because, first of all, the Bucks have better playoff experience than the Sixers. The Sixers have never made it out of the second round, and they've honestly gotten their ass kicked more times in the playoffs than they haven't with this current team. Like they won their first series, then they lost in 5. They won their first round series, then they lost in 7, and they lost in 4 last year. So that's a lot of like either winning close series or getting your ass kicked. The Bucks got their ass kicked last year, but they made the conference finals the year before. They beat the shit out of the Celtics. They beat the shit out of whoever they played in the first round. Like, I guess my point is the Bucks have more playoff experience. I think they match up better against the Nets because Giannis can guard Durant when he's in the paint. And then they've got Drew Holiday, who's an elite defensive guard who actually can take like Kyrie or Harden, at least in the ISO. He can play a lot better against them than Ben Simmons can. Like, I just think the Bucks match up a little bit better with the guards they have as opposed to the Sixers.
I think defensively, I have to agree with you. The Bucks definitely match up better, but the Bucks' offense in the playoffs has been stagnant.
That's true. Best. That is a really good point.
The 76ers, this season at least, Joel Embiid has gone off for more 30 to 15 games than I can count. Like, Ben Simmons doesn't, like, he's played his role. He doesn't need to score because Tobias Harris has sort of stepped up into that second all-star role, even though somehow Ben Simmons was an all-star. But, like, Tobias Harris has stepped into that role. They have a bunch of shooters. Offensively, no one's outgunning the Nets, obviously, but they match up better than the Bucks do.
Yeah. I guess my thinking here is that you're not going to beat the Nets if you're both scoring 130 or 140 points, but you can beat the Nets if you hold them to like under 110 or something. Like you can beat the Nets if you play really good defense. You're not going to beat them in a shooting competition, you know?
I think another I guess not a problem with the Nets, but something to consider is that like Steve Nash is a rookie head coach that's never coached a playoff series before. So I guess we'll have to see how he does with that.
I'm not super concerned with that because, like, Tyronn Lue was, like, a rookie head coach when they won the 2016 finals, and I think that kind of just proves that, like, all you got to do is do, like, one, like, kind of bullshit motivational speech, and you got to have one of the best players in the world and a decent supporting cast. And they have one of the best players in the world, and they have an elite supporting cast.
Well, the difference is that LeBron can coach his team. I don't think anyone on the Nets is that sort of leader.
Yeah, but I like, yeah, that's a good point. But I also think that, having a play, I think if you have a team that's as good as the Nets are, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat you in a 7-game series. Because even if he coaches like Budenholzer, what is Durant? He's averaging like less than 30 minutes a game this year and has been like one of the most efficient players in the league when he plays. Like,
yeah.
That shit just doesn't happen. Like they also have 2 really good closers. Like Durant is a good closer. Kyrie is, I would say, the best closer in basketball right now. I mean, or close to it. And Harden kind of chokes in playoff games sometimes, but he's got 2 guys to pick up the slack if he does. And I also think the Harden thing is like he's the only player. He's been the only offense these last couple years for Houston. So I do think his playoff clutch stats are blown way out of proportion because you got to look at like the circumstances surrounding it.
Now, the ultimate clutch stat I remember seeing, this is kind of off topic, but I remember seeing on Instagram, it was like Paul George is 6 of 50 on go-ahead or clutch shots in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. For his career, like that's not just it's since leaving Indiana. It's like, he was always a shit player. This narrative that he was like actually really good in the playoffs in Indiana is kind of dumb. Are we done talking about Drew? What do we got?
So, next up, since we were already kind of talking about the Nets, LaMarcus Aldridge has announced his retirement from the NBA. He said there was I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, he was playing and he sort of had problems with an irregular heartbeat. So he went to the hospital, got it all checked out, but it was definitely like a health scare. And in order to avoid that, he retired.
Yeah, I did not know that he's actually been getting pretty regular treatments for a heart condition for like a lot of his career. I think since like 2007.
Really?
Yeah, so it's definitely that's what I heard at least. I'm not sure like I don't know 100% the details, but yeah, it's something like that.
I didn't know that.
So
that's scary.
yeah, so it's definitely I definitely thought of Chris Bosh when
They
I
were a little different though.
No, they definitely are. Like Chris Bosh was blood clots and LaMarcus was heart stuff, but it's definitely like it made me think of it in the way that like this guy can still play. He can still play really good basketball, and because of some shitty health condition, he's being forced out. So it bummed me out. I definitely was pretty bummed, even though he was on the Nets. I didn't really care about that. I was fine with him going to chase a ring.
Oh, yeah, Marcus is one of those guys where you want to see him win a ring.
Yeah, but yeah, it's. I hope he does stay around the team. Like I know he's not going to play, but I do hope that if they win it all, he gets a ring. That's really.
He played. He did technically play a regular season game for them, so I think he does get a ring.
What was that thing with Varejao where it was like he got traded to the Warriors midway through the 2016 season, and the Cavs still gave him a ring because they were like, yeah, you played like 10 games for us, so
yeah. Since LaMarcus Aldridge played, he will get a ring if they win.
Yeah. I felt bad for him. Definitely, he was one of my favorite players. I liked him a lot because he was on the Spurs for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was definitely bummed to see it. But it was very nice to see Dame. I do think that his number should be retired in Portland.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he did a lot. Like, he brought them out of probably the worst place they've ever been as a franchise. I know he kind of left them in the dust when he went to San Antonio, but yeah, I don't think it's a crazy. At least I don't think it's a crazy stretch to say his number. They should consider it for sure.
I think definitely consider it. I don't know if. Obviously, he did a lot for the team, but I don't know if it's enough to warrant a jersey retirement.
He was the best player they had since Drexler for a long time. Like he brought him out of like really like a 10-year funk. So I don't know. I think players like that do mean a lot more to like cities than people who are on the outside know. So I would not be shocked if he got his number retired. Like if a player like that came into the Pacers and like, brought us to like Karras. If Karras came in and he was like, yeah, I'm going to be the best player your franchise has had since Paul George left you, then I'd be pretty happy about it. And I don't know if he, I don't know. Like he went to like 5 All-Star games with Portland too.
Yeah, I know. I guess it's a lot harder to be like a non-Portland fan and really know what he
quantify what
he
means
team.
For the franchise.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I hope he has a happy retirement. Definitely.
I hope so. I hope he lives a very long life and these heart problems don't get worse. Because that would
suck. That too.
Next up, Jabari Parker has signed with the Boston Celtics
himself.
Why does he keep getting signed to teams? He's bad.
I just want to say, has there ever been a worse first 2 picks in the draft than 2014? Because it was like Wiggins, Parker, and then I think the third pick was Embiid. So has there ever been, like, I can't think of a draft where the first 2 picks sucked that much.
Who was the second pick in 2013?
Oladipo. So
yeah, he's
definitely not as bad because he's an all-star.
What was the 2001 draft? I remember that
2001 might be in there. What was that? Kwame Brown, and then no, Olowokandi was 99. Okay,
Olowokandi was 99. I think. Wait, was it 2000 or 2001? That was what was it? Kenyon Martin.
Kenyon Martin was good.
Maybe it wasn't Kenyon. I remember it was 2000 or 2001 was like a really shitty draft class. I can't remember which one.
Well, I mean, from 99 to 2001, those were some of the worst draft classes ever. Like consistently horrible. Okay, 99. Was oh shit, I clicked on the wrong thing. 1999 was Elton Brand and Steve Francis. So actually a pretty decent first 2 picks, and Baron Davis and Lamar Odom. So actually the first 4 picks were pretty good. So 99 or no, it was was it 2000 that Olowokandi, the Candy Man?
I know, 2000 the first 2 picks were Kenyon Martin and Stromile Swift.
Okay, so
that was
like
the season where Mike Miller won Rookie of the Year.
All right, 2001 was Kwame Brown and Tyson Chandler. So, like, not exactly 2 home runs, but Tyson Chandler was a really good defensive center for a while. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm thinking, like,
What
definitely
year was
not.
Olowokandi? Was it 98?
Yeah, it would have been
98.
98.
Olowokandi and Mike Bibby, yeah.
Olowokandi and Mike Bibby. So, Mike Bibby was really good, or pretty good. I mean, he was good for a while. A good rotation player, at least. 98. I think that 2017 is maybe the closest thing because there's one like, although I already think that Fultz and Ball probably like Ball is definitely better than Parker, and I think Fultz is, I mean he was bad for a while, but he's definitely fixed it. Like I don't know if he's better than Wiggins, but yeah, I think the first 2 picks in that draft are better. 2013, 2012,
05 was Andrew Bogut and Marvin Williams.
That one's bad. Yeah, I think that one's probably worse than 2014. Darren Williams was 5, Chris Paul 4, or Darren Williams 3, Chris Paul 4, Raymond Felton 5, baby.
Raymond Felton, what a stud.
2006, Bargnani and LaMarcus Aldridge. So no.
Yeah. 07 was the KD draft.
I think 2005.
See, there's a problem. All these drafts have like one good player and one not. Like 2008's Derrick Rose and Michael Beasley, right? So one really good player, one not good player. 2010's Blake Griffin, Hasheem Thabit. So like John Wall, Evan Turner for 2010. Kyrie and then Derek Williams in 2011.
95.
So, like, all these drafts.
95. It's Joe Smith who played for a long fucking time. Jesus. Or no, he played for a million teams, but he played for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And Antonio McDyess, who was fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was okay. He had
both
a couple of
better
really good years.
Than Parker and Wiggins, though.
Yes, that is true.
So, yeah,
1990. Derek. Oh no, Gary Payton was second.
Who was number 1 in that draft?
Derek Coleman.
He was also
1989,
pretty solid, though, right?
Yeah, he was fine. 1989 was Purvis Ellison and Danny Ferry. So
Now,
not exactly cream of the crop here.
Is that worse than Andrew Bogut and Marvin Williams, though?
Well, Andrew Bogut, did he win a Defensive Player of the Year? I feel like he was on an All-Defensive team. No, he was on an All-NBA team in 2009-10, 2014-15 All-Defensive, 2005-6 All-Rookie, and he had the most blocks in 2000. Yeah, I would say Andrew Bogut is probably better than Wiggins. I would say Bogut definitely has a better career than Wiggins. And then Bargnani, I mean, he was okay. He wasn't very good, but he was fine. He had like
was Marvin Williams, not the Bargnani, was the number 2 pick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Marvin Williams had like a 15-year career, right?
I mean, yeah, he was on the Bucks last season, I think, or is it this season? Yeah. Last
19-20 Bucks. I mean, yeah, he wasn't great, but he definitely like figured it out and was a pretty good rotation player for a while. So yeah, I would say he's definitely better than Parker. Yeah, I think 2014 is up there for the worst first 2 picks.
Oh, it's definitely up there. It's just a question of if it's number 1 or not.
I think it's like 2014. I don't think 2005 is in there because Bogut was really... I forgot how like awesome defensively Bogut was. He was really good. I should not have disrespected Andrew Bogut like that. I think it's like 2014, 1989, because like Purvis Ellison and Danny Ferry, like, I mean, none of those guys even like touched an All-Star game. Like, at least you can say, okay, Wiggins has like pretty good career averages, right?
Yeah, and he's actually having a pretty good year with the Warriors.
1980, Joe Barry Carroll and Daryl Griffith was pretty good. Yeah, I think it's like 2014 and 1989.
1986 was Brad Daugherty and Len Bias. One of them didn't even play an NBA game.
Oh yeah, that's true. But Daugherty was pretty good.
Yeah, he was an All-Star a few times.
Yeah. Oh, 5-time All-Star. Yeah, that one's definitely better because at least like somebody who was really good was picked. first,
Yeah.
even if the other guy didn't play at all. Yeah, I think it's definitely in the conversation for worst too.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. Yeah, because then you get into like the 70s and stuff, and I don't care enough about who was drafted number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of like that was kind of the wild
draft.
like people like there. I heard a story about like an Atlanta Hawks GM that like drafted his newborn son with like a 6th round pick or something. Like it was the fucking Wild West of drafting back then.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how Jabari Parker keeps getting on teams, especially the Celtics, because Jabari Parker isn't exactly the big man you need. Like,
so Jabari Parker he's 26. What? That's fucking crazy.
how old did you think he was?
I thought he was like 28 or 29.
Nah. Well, he was drafted in 2014. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, God, I guess he was only a freshman because I remember that college basketball season so vividly because I remember how good Kansas was because they had obviously Wiggins and Embiid, who were the best 2 players, who both went top 3. And then that Duke team was so fucking good, and they got beat by, like, I think it was Lehigh. I think it was C.J. McCollum's Lehigh team in the first round.
Wait,
and
who was
Jabari
on
Parker
that
was, like,
Duke
the best
team?
player. Jabari Parker.
oh,
Yeah, he was like Duke's, like, by far best player that year. And the pretty much consensus, like, first or second overall pick. Like, I remember it was, like, kind of a toss-up who was going to go first that year. Do you remember when the Bucks signed Giannis to less money so that they could give Jabari Parker a bigger contract?
I do remember that. I mean, Jabari Parker could have been good if he didn't get hurt.
He got
a bunch.
injured so much. I mean, I'm kind of roasting him, but like he did have a pretty unfortunate career with injuries.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, he definitely could have been a lot better, but injuries happen, and now he's bad.
Guess what Jabari Parker's career earnings are through 7 seasons?
Total?
Yeah.
142 million.
Okay, so now you're saying way too high, so now it sounds ridiculous.
Is it is it over or under?
No,
100
it's
million?
not even. It's under $100 million.
Okay. $62 million.
No, it's 55 though. Like that's fucking crazy for a dude who was like never that good.
I thought I was really spot on.
He's getting paid $6.5 million by the Kings this year to just not play basketball for them.
Yeah, well, that's what the Kings do is they sign people
Yeah.
to a lot of money and then regret it. So
Yeah.
The Kings are a dumpster fire. We were talking about this in the Xbox party, dude. They're so bad.
Yeah, it's depressing. I don't even like. Do you want to talk about the Kings, or can
No,
we talk
not
about
at
something
all.
else? Okay,
We can move
let's
on.
talk about something else.
Dwayne Wade is now a part owner of the Utah Jazz.
Look, all I'm saying is you predicted that Donovan Mitchell was going to have like a Dwayne Wade 2006 type season, and the Jazz are really good, like the Heat were. Now Dwayne Wade's coming in. He's buying a small ownership stake in the team. All I'm saying is don't be surprised if that comes true.
The pieces are falling together. They're falling in
The pieces
place.
are falling
as they
together.
say.
Maybe Dwayne Wade coaches him up. He's like, look, this is exactly what you need to do when your center is playing shitty offense in the playoffs.
To be fair, I think Donovan Mitchell doesn't take steroids. So
Well, that's true. And to be fair, Dwayne Wade's team was pretty loaded that year. I mean,
oh, was it? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he had a young, dominant Udonis Haslem. I mean, it's...
For people that don't understand that, there was like this Instagram post which was like, who was better, Harden or Wade? And I commented on it saying Wade because, one, it's true, and two, I'm a huge Dwayne Wade fan.
At least
and then
for their careers, it's definitely true right now.
And then this dude commented on it, talking about how stacked that 2006 team was because he had Gary Payton and Jason Williams and Alonzo Mourning and Shaq, even though all these guys were like old.
All these guys
and
were like
bad.
either washed or like at the very end of their primes.
Yeah. He also proceeded to say, like, after listing all those players, he also said a young, dominant Udonis Haslem. So that's where that joke comes from.
Yeah. So now we say it all the time.
Yeah, because Udonis Haslem has never been dominant. He's always been like a solid player.
He averaged
and,
like 12 points per game 1 year. That's like his career.
yeah, and he's definitely an OG, but he was never a dominant force in the NBA. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell's definitely he's got the same first letter in his name as Dwayne Wade. If you take the W in Wade and flip it upside down, it becomes an M for Mitchell. So it's definitely looking very likely that Donovan Mitchell will pop off.
Alonzo Mourning in the 2005-2006 season started 20 games. He played 65 total, and he averaged 7 points per game, 5 rebounds, and like 3 blocks. So actually, he was pretty good defensively.
Yeah,
but yeah, not exactly prime
Alonzo Mourning from
in
1998.
Yeah.
But yeah. Next
what else
up,
we got?
Jamal Murray tore his ACL, which sucks because it was like the end of a game. That was a complete blowout. He didn't need to be in there, and he tore his ACL. But hindsight's always 20/20. We were talking about. I mean, we talked about everything in the party, but like this, like the Nuggets are still like the 4 seed, but I have lost all confidence in them in the playoffs now. I don't know if they can win without Jamal Murray.
I don't have a ton of confidence in them. Like, I had them as kind of a dark horse contender in the West to make the finals, but I don't think they're that. But I do think they could win a playoff series, maybe.
Well, I mean, they can definitely get out of the first round, but I don't see them secretly making it to the conference finals or whatever.
They're playing the Lakers, never mind. But if they played like the Blazers or the Mavericks or something, I think they could win a playoff series.
Well, the Lakers are still falling, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a fucking bummer. It's part of the NBA. Like, Donovan Mitchell sprained his ankle. It could have been a lot worse. But, like, yeah. All these like, major injuries are happening right now. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if the product that comes out in the playoffs was bad and the NBA regretted their decision to condense all these games. Because, like, they're not going to...
cramming 72 games.
They're not going to give a shit if the players get hurt, but they are going to give a shit if the ratings fall. And I think the ratings could be worse if, like, marquee players from a bunch of playoff teams aren't playing.
Yeah. I mean, it is a product of, one, they didn't have much of a break at all between the seasons. They had, like, a super crammed season. And, I mean, it's a combination of both, because all the teams that weren't in the bubble haven't played since, last year in March, and they get thrown into this 72-game season without a preseason. And then all of these teams that played in, like, the playoffs, they got, like, a month off, and then they had to get back into the season. So it's really the worst of both worlds, because neither group is going to be properly conditioned or rested for the playoff or for the next season.
Yeah.
But I do hope, like, even like when everything returns to normal, I think they should either go like keep a 72 game season, or like another thing is, like, if you remember a while ago, like it was like the 80s or whatever, they had like the 5-game series in the first round or whatever.
Yeah. They had that until like 2003 or 4, I think.
Did they? I thought they got rid of that in like the mid 90s.
No, I'm pretty sure that they had short first rounds for a long time.
Okay. Yeah,
Hold on, I'll be right back. You vamp for a second.
Okay. I think if they either brought that back or just shortened the season, because even though most of the time the first round is a sweep, there are still times when it's not like last season in the bubble, the Clippers and Mavericks series went to 6. And I mean, the Clippers didn't get much of a break between that. The Jazz Nuggets series also went, or was that the first round matchup? I think it was, but that one also went to 7. Yeah, so like the first round was very grueling for like a lot of these teams.
Yeah, definitely.
And they just didn't get that break. But yeah, a lot of injuries going on.
Yeah.
which kind of blows.
It does blow.
Oh, jeez. Next up, this is a bit of a small one, but I still did want to talk about it because it's very sad. The Pelicans are not bringing back Isaiah Thomas at the end of his 10-day contract. Or they didn't bring him back at the end of his 10-day contract because it's already up.
Yeah, I don't really know why. They need guard depth. Like, it's definitely a little weird to me.
I mean, they're not, like, losing anything by keeping him. They weren't going to make the playoffs anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You might as well have some people rooting for your team.
He provides some spacing, like...
He provides some spacing and he provides fan support, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because people want to see him succeed. Next up, our last piece of big news. Well, I guess it's not big, but our last piece of news. The Thunder sign Gabriel Deck to a 4-year, $14.5 million contract. And I never heard of him before, but apparently he was on the Argentina national team, and he's supposed to be, like, pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder have, like, basically no money on the books. They haven't had to extend Shea yet, so I think they're just kind of playing around with... They're going to move Horford in the offseason, like... They're kind of just throwing a bunch of stuff to the wall to see who sticks and who doesn't, and, you know, good moves.
Yeah. So, I don't know if he's played a game yet. He's probably still, like, moving into the United States. But
yeah.
It'd be fun if he was good. You have that young core, dude. Shea, Pokusevski, and this guy.
Dude, Dort? Don't forget about
Dort. Oh, that's true. Dort. I'm sorry, no. I didn't mean to forget about Dort.
Yeah, dude. Come on.
And, I mean, Al Horford, he's kind of part of the young core in a sense. He's
really.
physically he's old,
not
but
young
mentally
or part of the core.
No, but mentally he's like a 20-year-old. You know what I mean? Al Horford still rages.
Mentally he's also not even like a part of the team. Like they.
Oh, sure he is.
They basically cut him.
No, they didn't.
I mean, they kind of did. They were like, "Yeah, don't play anymore. You're too old."
That's because he's physically old, not because he's mentally
value.
old. He has no trade value. He's a 36-year-old making $27 million.
Well, I mean,
do you think the Kings will offer like a first-round pick for him?
Oh, definitely. The Kings are going to offer like 5 first-round picks and like Buddy Hield or something.
Yeah. De'Aaron Fox and 2 first-round picks for Al Horford. But yeah, that's all we got this week. Bit of a shorter episode, but there wasn't much like actual news. And yeah, I think that's all we got. So, you have anything else to add?
No, that's it for me.
All right, then thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. The podcast Twitter and email and stuff is in the description. Our personal channels are in the description. Aiden's football article is in the description. And as I have recently learned, Aiden Hammond Sports is a TikTok page. So check that out. The O in sports is a 0.
Yeah.
And yeah. So if that's all we got, thanks for watching.
All right. Bye.